Lesson 7, Origin of Earthquakes. Folk tales are stories passed by word of mouth from one generation to another. They are generally age-old stories repeated often to preserve culture and tradition of a place and its people. Belonging to the oral tradition, they are essentially strategies to pass on information, knowledge, and history and justify institutions and systems prevalent in a society. They take the form of fables, myths, and fairy tales. Folk tales generally contain a value and their own explanation of the world at that point in time. They explore life's lessons and provide for cultural exchanges. Folklore helps in building imagination. They grant us access to varied views and perspectives through entertainment. Folk tales, this word is made with the two words folk and tales. Folk means people, tale means story. Story of the people. So, which story? We are talking about the old stories. What is the difference between the normal story and this folk tale? Folk tale, these are the old stories which represents the culture. And what are the unique things about this? Very first, normal story we can find it in written, but folk tales are the oral spoken stories. Now we can find it in written form also, but at that time people used to tell this story, and in this story they included information about their culture, tradition, place and people, and they passed it from one generation to another generation. What they were doing with this folk tales? They were passing information, knowledge, history, and with that they were justifying institutions and system which was prevalent. Prevalent means widespread, which was widespread at that time in their society. And these folk tales were in different forms like fables. Mostly these were the stories including animals, and myths were the traditional story which was explaining the natural or social phenomenon, and fairy tales, these were the children's story about the magical and imaginary being and land, and which included the fairyland, fairies, and fairy stories. What was the use of these folk tales? They were used to explore life's lessons, and they also provided the cultural exchanges. So two uses, they were used for giving life lesson and to tell about the culture. Folklore. See, here we were having folk tales, now it is folklore. What is the difference between these two? So, folklore represented the traditional belief and story of a community, and folk tales, these were only the stories. So this folklore included everything. This is very wide, and folk tales, it is only related with the story which was including culture also. So folk tale was the part of folklore. With an estimated 1,200 languages and 24 official languages in the subcontinent, having its own subcultures and narratives, Indian folk tales are in plenty and have traveled the world over. Indian oral tradition comprising folk tales is one of the oldest traditions in the world. Existing for more than 1,000 years, they have traveled to the Indo-European world and been translated into many languages. Origin of earthquakes. Once upon a time, there lived an orphan. Orphan means a child whose parents have died, named Yagdor. After his parents' untimely means unsuitable time, death, he lived with his grandparents and grew up with them. He took up the responsibility of maintaining the family by gathering chunks of wood. Chunks means a thick solid piece of something, and selling them. In those days, there were vast stretches of wild woodlands. Stretches means something soft or elastic be capable of being made longer or wider without tearing or breaking. Of wild woodland. Woodland means land covered with tree and grassland, and so people living in villages moved around in woodland and grassland on the bank of rivers in search of stumps of trees. Stumps means the bottom part of the tree and other chunks of wood. Those places were also the habitats of wild animals like elephants, buffaloes, tigers, bears, boars, etc. So what we saw here? We saw the story started with the orphan boy whose name was Yagdor, whose parents died and their death was untimely. So he was living with his grandparents, and because they were old and were not able to do work, so Yagdor took the responsibility of maintaining the family, and he was going to woodland, that is a forest, to gather the chunks of wood which was spread in a vast area, and all the villagers used to go there, which was near the bank of river, and they used to search the stumps of trees. Stumps means the bottom part of the tree or the other chunks of wood, and that they used to sell and earn their livelihood. But that place was not very safe. It was little bit dangerous also because of the habitat of wild animals. These animals were elephants, buffaloes, tigers, bears, boars. Till here, we came to know that Yagdor was a boy who was living with his grandparents because his parents died, and he was taking care of his grandparents, and his grandparents were taking care of him. Livelihood was earned by Yagdor by gathering chunks of wood and selling them, and he was going to forest for that along with the villagers. One day Yagdor went to a stretch of grassland in the company of other people in the village to gather firewood. As soon as they reached that stretch of grassland, the elephant that headed the animal kingdom there appeared in front of them. The entire group of people from the village who went there ran away fast when they saw the elephant. While running, Yagdor stumbled against something and fell down. Stumble means trip repeatedly as one walks, thus allowing the elephant to catch up with him. He knew the elephant was about to trample him. Trample means stamp or crush. He closed his eyes and faked being dead. The elephant then pushed Yagdor here and there with his legs. In the process, Yagdor fell into a hole. Finding it inconvenient, inconvenient means causing trouble, difficulty or discomfort. Finding it inconvenient to deal with the man in the hole, the elephant left the spot. So here we saw that one day Yagdor went in the forest to collect firewood along with the other villagers. Then they found elephant coming over there. By seeing that people ran away, Yagdor also tried to run away, but he stumbled and fell down, and the elephant came close to him, and he felt as if he will get crushed by elephant's leg, so he closed his eyes and pretended as if he died. Elephant pushed Yagdor with his legs, and in that process Yagdor fell into a hole. Elephant felt it difficult to find the man in the hole, so Elephant left the spot. When Yagdor's old grandparents didn't see him amongst the group of people returning from the grassland, they asked the group where he was. On hearing from the people that an elephant had attacked them in the grassland, they took Yagdor for dead and wept bitterly. Just then the boy turned up. Turned up means to arrive at. The old couple's joy at seeing their grandchild again knew no bounds. Knew no bounds means unlimited. The people of the village with whom Yagdor had gone to grassland were also amazed at the boy's return. So, what happened when the village people who went along with Yagdor returned back and Yagdor didn't come? Then his grandparents enquired from those people, and they came to know that an elephant attacked him, and they thought that he got killed by elephant, so they started crying badly. In that meantime, Yagdor came back. After seeing Yagdor, his grandparents felt very happy. The people of village who saw Yagdor were amazed to see that how this boy returned back without any hurt. They wondered whether they saw a real elephant or merely a tree stump or just an illusion. So when villagers saw that Yagdor came back alive, then they were surprised and they thought that whatever they saw in the forest was the real elephant only, or it was only the base part of the tree, that is the tree stump, or whatever they saw was not the actual. Illusion means false impression. So they thought that whether it was not the actual elephant, only their imagination. Having escaped from the clutches of an elephant, clutches means grasp or grip, Yagdor grew more courageous. Courageous means not deterred with danger or pain, brave than before, and the people of the village also began to look up to him as a valiant young man. Valiant means brave or courageous. So, after that incident, this boy became so courageous, the fear was gone out of his mind and heart, and even among the village people, he became popular as a courageous young man. On one occasion, Yagdor felt a desire to travel around the world. He duly means following proper procedure or arrangement, leave of his parents and started on his journey. In the absence of other modes of transport in those days, he performed his journey on foot. He walked through forests and stretches. Stretches means wider area of grassland, and waded. Waded means walk with effort through water or another liquid or viscous substance, waded or swam across streams and rivers. So we can find that one time he felt and decided that he will travel throughout the world, and for that he made arrangement for his grandparents so that they should not
feel any shortage or scarcity in his absence. So he made all the arrangement for his grandparents and then started for journey. And in those days they were not having a proper mode of transportation, so he walked on his foot only, and while walking he crossed the wide range of grassland. Then a river came and he just walked through the river, and sometime he swam also and crossed the river and moved from one place to another. At one place on the way he saw a man cutting wood. He walked up to the man and said, "Who are you? What are you doing? Will you come with me?" The man replied, "I am Me Pung." We saw here that on the way he found a man. What he was doing? He was cutting wood. And when he asked the name of that person, he told that he is Me Pung. So let us highlight this one. He told his name as Me Pung. "I am a woodcutter and I am willing to go with you." So he told his name first, then his profession. So what was he with the profession? Woodcutter. Yagdor said to the man, "All right, then come along." A short while later, the two of them met another man. Yagdor asked the man who he was and what he was doing there. The man replied, "I am E Pung." So another name told his name that he is Ipung, and I belong to this place. I am cutting open a way here for catching elephants. This man too expressed his willingness to go with them. Willingness means desire or readiness. So very first man he met was Mipung, who was a woodcutter, and next was Ipung. What he was doing? He was trying to cut open the way so that he can catch elephants. Means this tells about the strength of this person Ipung. Yagdor along with Mipung and Ipung crossed a wide stretch of wild woodland. What it means? That they crossed a very wide woodland means forest beside a river which was located near the river. When he met another man, and in that meantime they found another person. When Yagdor put the same queries to this man, queries means the question, he said he was Karpung. So he told his name as Karpung. First Mipung, second Ipung, third is Karpung. And that he earned his living by breaking stones. What was his work? His work was to break the stones, adding that he was willing to go with them if they didn't mind. So we can find that Mipung, Ipung and Karpung, all the three were physically fit. All the four men walked on after crossing 5 riverside forests. They came across a big river. The river was so big that they could not see its other bank. While discussing how to swim across the river, Yagdor asked Mipung, "How far can you swim?" Mipung replied, "To that spot over there where you can see the bubbles." "How about you, Ipung?" said Yagdo to Ipung. "Up to the spot where you can see the whirlpools," replied Ipung. Karpung said he could swim up to the spot where they could see a porpoise surfacing. Yagdor then instructed his three companions to hold on to him after they reached their respective destinations. With this understanding, the four of them started to swim together. So we saw that all these four men, they crossed five riverside forests, and finally they got one very big river whose bank was not visible. So they were having discussion with each other, and when Yagdor asked Mepung that how long you can swim, then he told that he can swim till the place or the spot they can see the bubbles. When the same question was asked to Ipung, he replied that he can swim to the spot they can see the whirlpools. Whirlpools, they are the quickly rotating mass of water in a river or sea into which object may be drawn, typically caused by meeting the waves, replied Ipung. And Karpung said that he can swim to the spot where they could see a porpoise. Porpoise is a group of aquatic marine mammal, and they have the look of dolphin. So he told that he can swim to the spot they can see porpoise surfacing. And then Yagdor gave instructions to all the three of them to follow him till the time they did not reach their destination. And after this, believing each other, they started to swim together. While continuing to swim for some time, Yagdor could see a huge fish near the other bank of the river, waiting to swallow them. Swallow means allow to pass down the throat. When the fish was not far away from the four swimmers, he caught hold of his companions, one after the other, and threw them to the land on the bank, one after the other. Then he caught the fish by his tail and made an effort to heave it. Heave means lift. To heave it up to land, but it was the fish which pulled him into the water. Then, in his next attempt, Yagdor succeeded in pulling the fish up to land, but the fish managed to jerk. Jerk means a quick, sharp, sudden movement itself back into water, taking Yagdor with it. This seesaw means change rapidly and repeatedly from one position, situation, or condition to another and back again, went on for some time, but finally Yagdor scored a triumph against fish. Triumph means victory, which now lay on the ground on the bank of the river. We saw here when they were swimming together, they found a fish on the other bank of the river which was ready to swallow them. After seeing the fish, Yagdo threw his companion to the land on the bank, one after the other. Then he caught the fish with the tail and he tried to lift it so that he can carry it onto the land. But fish pulled him into water. Again he tried to lift it up and the fish gave a jerk, that is a forceful movement, and pulled him back into the water. This was like seesaw, means sometime it was looking that fish will take Yagdor into water, and sometime it was visible that Yagdor will carry the fish on the land. So this happened for some time, but finally Yagdor won and fish gave up, and they found fish lying on the ground on the bank of the river. The three men traveling with Yagdor had never tasted fish. Having had lived on whatever the forest provided them, so they began to salivate. Salivate means secrete saliva, especially in anticipation of food. When they saw the big fish, Yagdor too wanted to give them a treat with the fish. He climbed up a tall bo tree. Bo tree means fig tree, to its top and looked around to find out if there was any human habitation nearby. Habitation means living place. Not far away to the east, he could see a village where there was smoke coming out from a house. He then sent Mipung to fetch. Fetch means bring fire from that house. On reaching the village, Mipung stopped at a house. There was a drooping old woman. Drooping means bent or hang downward limply, who sat on a platform annexed means attached to the veranda in front part of the house. Mipung had no idea that he had entered a land of spirits. When he asked the old woman if there was any fire in her house, the latter responded in the positive. She also told him that she had a stomach ache and her legs too were aching, and so he had better go inside himself and bring the fire. Mipung went inside accordingly and found the fire in a hole. As he bent down to pick up a brand of fire from the hole, the old woman came in silently and kicked him into the hole. In spite of his best efforts, he could not get out of the hole. Till here we saw that when the three men saw the fish, thinking about its taste, they started salivating because they have never tasted it. And the reason was that they only depended on the forest product, means they before this they only ate vegetarian food. Yagdor also wanted them to eat fish. He wanted to use fish as a treat for them, and to cook fish, he needed fire. So he climbed up the bo tree. Bo tree means fig tree. He climbed up the fig tree at its top and looked around to find human habitation to get the fire. So towards the east, he saw a village from which the smoke was coming out. Yagdor sent Mipung to the village to fetch the fire. Mipung found a drooping old woman who was sitting on a platform which was attached to the veranda in front part of the house. He asked her for the fire and she got ready to give also, but she told that she had a stomach ache and her legs were also aching, so he will have to take fire by himself by going inside the house. So Mipung went inside the house and found the fire in a hole. So he bent down to pick up a brand of fire from the hole. In that meantime, the old woman came from backside and kicked him into the hole. He made his effort to come out of the hole, but he failed to do so. And this happened because the woman who was looking like old woman was actually the evil spirit. He was unaware that the land on which he entered is actually the land of spirits. On the bank of the big river, Yagdor got tired of waiting for Mipung's return. He sent Ipung for fetching fire. Ipung went to the village and saw the old woman sitting on the platform annexed to the veranda in the front part of the house. He asked her whether there was any fire in the house. The old woman said yes, but asked the man to go inside and get the fire himself, for she said she was unwell. Ipung went in and tried to take a brand of fire from the hole, but he met the same fate as Mipung, having been kicked into the hole by the old woman. So, at the bank of the river, Yagdor waited for Mipung, but when he did not come back, then Yagdor sent Ipung for the fire. The same thing happened with Ipung, and he was also kicked into the hole by the old woman. When Ipung didn't return, Yagdor sent Karpung, and when Karpung too didn't return, Yagdor finally went to the village himself. On reaching the village, Yagdor incidentally stopped at the same house where the old woman was sitting on the platform annexed to the veranda in the front side of the house. The old woman asked him to fetch the fire himself. Yagdo turned back and caught hold of the evil spirit in the form of an old woman. He lifted her up and whirling means characterized by rapid movement round and round. Her round and round overhead like a boobung. Boobung is a simple device overhead in a circular manner produces a sound and can be thrown to a great distance. Threw her up and away to a great distance with tremendous force. Tremendous means large amount of. The earth then shook. Shook is the past of shake. So severely and became so wobbly. Wobbly means emotionally or physically disturbed, upset, that the other evil spirits took fright. Fright means a sudden intense feeling of fear. And fled. Fled means run away from a place or situation of danger. And land helter-skelter. Helter-skelter means involves haste and confusion. Till here we saw that when Mipung and Ipung didn't return, then Yagdor sent Karpung. And the same thing happened with Karpung also. He did not return back. Finally, Yagdor reached the village and he found the same house where the old woman was sitting on platform attached to the veranda in the front side of the house. The old woman asked him to take fire himself, but Yagdor sensed the danger because of non-returning of his companion, so he turned back and caught hold of the evil spirit who was in the form of old woman, and he lifted her up, whirled her round and round, and threw her to a great distance with tremendous force. With the falling of the woman, the earth shook so severely the evil spirit got frightened and they ran away from that land in hurry and confusion. So that incident of shaking of earth was considered as earthquake. From that time, it is considered that earthquake originated at that time. It is said that earthquakes have their origin in that extraordinary event. People also say that spirits on earth have preferred to remain invisible to man since that day. So it was considered that that was the first time when earthquake came into existence, and from that time these spirits started remaining on earth in invisible form.